Howdy, Full Metal Cowboy, straight shooting a review of the first season of Dragons Race to the Edge. This is technically the third season of DreamWorks' Dragons, and from this point on, this is the permanent name of the DreamWorks Dragons television show. There are two things that are different with Race to the Edge in comparison to Riders of Berk and Defenders of Berk. The move to Netflix, as well as having a shorter episode count in comparison to the previous two seasons having both 20 episodes each. Now, I thought that this would reduce the amount of filler that this show has been having from the previous two seasons. And that's really no longer the case because Dragons Race to the Edge is more of the same in comparison to Riders of Berk and Defenders of Berk. Now, given the move to Netflix, I was also hoping that maybe the animation would improve and be the best presentation for a television series based on the How to Train Your Dragon films, which clearly have better animation and for obvious reasons. Film budgets have better production values than television budgets. I'll give the Dragons television show this. What stands out for this show, I think, is a bit weak in the How to Train Your Dragon films. But what makes the How to Train Your Dragon films stand out is very weak here. Case in point, I think the villains stand out in this show compared to the How to Train Your Dragon films. And Dagger is one of those examples because he has by far been one of the most enjoyable things that I have experienced throughout this television series, despite I struggle with it. Any episodes that Dagger is in are the ones I always look forward to throughout this television series, but anything to do with any hijinks involving Rough Nut, Tough Nut, Snotlout, or Fish Legs are the ones I always find boring. Now, seeing as how this television series is set chronologically after the first How to Train Your Dragon film and ends chronologically before How to Train Your Dragon 2, although Race to the Edge was actually being released after How to Train Your Dragon 2, one would think that they would have better characterization through the television show, but no, these characters never develop in the television series, therefore making a lot of this series filler. Heather, a character who was previously only seen in Riders of Berk, makes a return for Race to the Edge. And about her name, it sticks out like a sore thumb, because according to this particular story, her name is not Viking-like, given the names like Hiccup, Astrid, which is a cool name, Snotlout, Fish Legs, Rough Nut, Tough Nut, kind of fits in with the kind of naming of characters in this particular universe of storytelling. Heather just really feels out of place. And there's a pretty good reason why Heather makes a return this time around, but that delves into a major spoiler, and I want to keep major spoilers out of this review. But I do have more to say about Heather, but that goes into later seasons beyond this one. But I assure you, I really want to talk about Heather down the road. I will, however, delve into how this first season of Race to the Edge ends, except there's no major spoilers involved. But there is a two-part episode before the last two episodes of Season 1 of Race to the Edge that make me wonder, why couldn't this two-part episode just be the ending of Season 1 of Race to the Edge? It would have ended the first season of Dragons Race to the Edge just fine. It would have been a competent season finale. But no, they decided to end the first season of Race to the Edge with a couple filler episodes. And I'd like to know whose bright idea was this? Although there is a future season of Race to the Edge that does a bit of a Star Trek Next Generation cliffhanger pull, and God, I'd never liked that. So yeah, Dragons Race to the Edge is more of the same as the previous two seasons that came before it. Therefore, I really wasn't that impressed that it moved to Netflix only to have little improvement from what came before it. I'm going to be shooting a 5 out of 10 for the first season of Dragons Race to the Edge. And that's my review of the first season of Dragons Race to the Edge. I thought this was going to be a very, very short review because of how little has improved from the previous two seasons that came before this, but given the move to Netflix as well as having 13 episodes per season instead of 20 that the previous two seasons had, it actually offered me a little bit more to say than what I've said before. But I can assure you, in my next review in my series of How to Train Your Dragon reviews, which will be of Dragons Race to the Edge Season 2, I will have very little to say about that season than I did here. That's because what I could say about the second season of Dragon's Race to the Edge has already been said previously in my series of How to Train Your Dragon reviews, especially in this particular run of the Dragons television show. So, I'm just prefacing that my next review of this series of How to Train Your Dragon reviews is going to be very, very short. We're looking at perhaps a 2-minute review. At least. Maybe a little bit more, at best. I'm just letting you know ahead of time. So until then, I'm going to be reloading for my next review, and I'll see you later.